Have you ever wondered what truly happens when you die? Not the rituals, not the silence that fills the room, not the mourning faces, but what happens to you, your essence, your soul. Do you believe that death is simply an end, or is it the beginning of the greatest judgment that you've never been told? Beneath every culture, hidden within every sacred scripture, from the whispers of Egypt to the pages of Revelation, from the Bardo, Thodol to the Bhagavad Gita, there lies one shared secret: the soul is weighed, but how? And more importantly, against what? Some say it's weighed against a feather, others say against your actions, your thoughts, your regrets. But the truth is much more haunting, much more intimate, because what if I told you the scale is not out there? It's within you, that every moment you lived, every time you chose love or hatred, forgiveness or pride, you etched an invisible weight onto your soul. And when the body is stripped away, when the rituals fade and the flowers wilt, that's when the real reckoning begins, not by any god's decree, but by your own essence reflecting upon itself. The Egyptian Book of the Dead called it the Hall of Two Truths. The heart of the deceased was placed on one side of the scale, on the other the feather of Ma'at, truth, justice, cosmic order. If your heart was heavier than the feather, your soul was devoured, lost forever. Sound mythical? Perhaps, but Job cried out in despair, "Let me be weighed in a just balance, that God may know my integrity." Ecclesiastes mourned, "The dust returns to the earth and the spirit returns to God who gave it." And in Luke 16, we see a rich man begging for mercy after death, not because he was rich, but because he failed to love. This is not myth, this is mirror. The weighing of the soul is not a ritual in the afterlife. It is the culmination of how you lived your life. You see, every judgment begins long before you die. It begins when you hold your tongue instead of cursing, when you listen instead of accuse, when you forgive without applause. These are the weights and counterweights of the eternal scale. And every sacred text, whether from the east or west, points to the same truth. You are judged by what you became, not what you claimed to believe. So let me ask you right now, not at the hour of your death, but at this very moment, what is your soul made of? Is it light? Is it heavy? Is it filled with regret or redemption? Because one day, sooner than you think, everything you carry within will be laid bare. Not before a crowd, not in a courtroom, but in a silence so profound it will echo forever. And in that stillness, your soul will rise or fall by its own weight. And if these words strike a chord within you, it's because you already know this. Deep down, your soul remembers. You don't need to be told what is right. You've always known. This truth is written not just in the Bible or the sutras, it's etched into the fabric of who you are. You were made to rise, but every choice you make either lifts you or anchors you. So choose. Choose to forgive. Choose to love. Choose to unchain yourself from the weights of anger, jealousy, fear. This is not a threat. This is a liberation, because the moment you become conscious of the weight you carry, you gain the power to release it. And that is the first hidden secret of the weighing of the soul. It begins now. Not after death, not when it's too late, now. Before we continue, I invite you, if you feel the truth in these words, share this message. Let it reach others still sleeping under the illusion that this life is merely material. Let them awaken to the power, the urgency, and the beauty of living a soul-lightening life. Subscribe. Follow this journey, not for me, for you. Because your soul is worth the truth, and the truth is, you can rise, but only if you choose to release what holds you down. What happens when your soul is weighed? The real question is, are you ready for it? Imagine this: you die. There's no sound, no light, no tunnel, just a strange stillness that surrounds you like fog. You expect to see someone, perhaps a judge, a figure of light, but no one comes. Instead, you begin to see yourself, not your face, not your body. You see your choices, one by one. You see the faces of those you hurt, the lives you touched, the silence when you should have spoken, the love you withheld, the kindness you gave freely. And then it dawns on you, this is the trial, this is the weighing, and you are both the witness and the judge. In the Garuda Purana, it is said that after death, the soul walks through realms where every act of one's life appears vividly, as though carved into space itself. These aren't punishments imposed from above, they are reflections from within. The Ksitigarbha Sutra paints images of spirits crying out in regret, not because of a deity's wrath, but because their own heart cannot bear the weight of their deeds. Revelation doesn't describe an angry God throwing souls into fire. It describes a great book being opened and each soul being judged by what was written in themselves. And herein lies the second secret of the soul's weighing. the soul judges itself. Not in the way your mind does, justifying, defending, blaming, but in the way a mirror reflects, purely unforgivingly, honestly. The Tibetan Bardo says that in the intermediate state we are confronted by visions, peaceful deities of light, terrifying, wrathful beings. But Chogyam Trungpa reminds us they are all projections of you. If you resist, they become demons. If you embrace, they become guides. In truth, there is no other in this place, there is only you. That's why the ancient Hermetic texts say, as within, so without, the heavens and hells are not separate places. They are states of being carried within your soul. The more peace you nurtured, the more peace you find. The more hatred you fed, the more torment you inherit. Judgment isn't about divine punishment, it's about resonance, like attracts like. A soul filled with fear cannot rise to the light. A soul bathed in compassion cannot be chained in darkness. Now pause for a moment and breathe. Not just with your lungs, but with your consciousness. Ask yourself, if your soul saw everything you've done without filters, without excuses, would it weep or would it rejoice? This is not a question to make you feel shame. It's a question to awaken you, because every day you still have the chance to rewrite that final vision. The book of life is not yet closed, and this is where your power lives. Right here, right now. Every act of forgiveness, every moment of stillness, every breath, where you choose not to judge, but to love, that's the soul laying down its burdens. That's you shaping the mirror. You will one day face, if this truth touches something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Let others know. Share this message with someone lost in resentment, drowning in fear, clinging to anger as though it were armor. Let them hear this not as a threat, but as a lifeline. Tell them you are not beyond redemption. No one is, but redemption doesn't happen after death. It starts here with awareness, with surrender, with choice, so subscribe. Stay with this journey. Let each part of this message carry you deeper, not into fear, but into freedom. Because what waits beyond this life is not a courtroom, it's a mirror, and you have the power to shape what that mirror will reflect. The second hidden truth about the weighing of the soul is this: no one condemns you. Only you can do that. Only you can set yourself free. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the weight of something unseen? A chill in the air, a heaviness pressing on your chest, not fear but sorrow, ancient grief, unspoken regret. It lingers in places abandoned, in homes never healed, in people who smile with eyes that scream. These are not just emotions. These are echoes. Echoes of souls too heavy to rise, not because they were cursed, not because they were evil, but because they held on too tightly to guilt, to shame, to wounds that were never given the dignity of healing. The Mahaparinirvana Sutra tells us that the Buddha did not simply pass into stillness. He dissolved all attachments, all illusions, even the illusion of self. Only then could he cross the threshold. The Bhagavad Gita teaches that the soul is eternal, indestructible, but it also warns the mind, if not mastered, becomes the soul's greatest enemy. A soul chained to unresolved hatred, to worldly obsession, to the illusion that it is only a body cannot ascend. Not because it is denied, but because it cannot let go. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist not only persists, it grows in size." He wasn't just speaking of the mind, he was speaking of the soul. We don't realize how much we carry. The unforgiveness toward a parent, the resentment toward a former lover, the rage at our own failures, they calcify within us. They become anchors. And when the body dies, the soul does not fly. It drags those anchors with it into the next realm. That's why in so many sacred texts, the dead wander. In the Bardo Thodol, they are said to roam for 49 days, pulled between illusions, afraid of the light, addicted to familiar pain. In the Garuda Purana, they're said to pass through rivers of flame and sorrow. Not punishments, but manifestations of their own unresolved suffering. In modern psychology, we call them shadows. In spiritual terms, we call them karma, but they are the same, the unhealed pieces of us that demand to be seen. This is the third secret of the soul's weighing. Some souls never move on because they cannot forgive themselves. And that is the heaviest weight of all. No demon is needed, no judgment is required. The prison is built from the inside, and the key, it has always been forgiveness. But how do you forgive when the wound runs deep? How do you let go of pain that became your identity? You start by realizing that healing is not forgetting, it's remembering differently. It's seeing the pain not as who you are, but as something you passed through. It's rewriting the story where you are not the victim, not the villain, but the witness who chose to rise. So I ask you, what are you carrying that your soul cannot afford to keep? What bitterness have you fed so long it became part of your name? What grief have you refused to let go of because it made you feel close to someone who's gone? The truth is nothing. Nothing can rise unless it is light, and the soul is meant to rise. It was not created to linger in sorrow, but you must choose not after death, now today with every breath you still have. Because the day will come when your body cannot take another, and what remains of you will be asked one simple question. Are you ready to be free? If these words stir something inside you, act on it. Don't scroll past. Don't save it for another day. Share this truth. Someone else needs to hear it. Someone is carrying weight. They think they were meant to hold forever. Tell them they're not. Tell them freedom begins with awareness. That awareness begins with love. And that love begins with letting go. Subscribe if you haven't. Not to follow me, but to follow your own soul's call. We are not here to be entertained. We are here to awaken. To remind each other that we are not alone in this sacred burden of becoming. Because the third hidden truth about the weighing of the soul is this: heaven is not denied to the heavy, it is simply too far for them to reach until they release what they were never meant to carry. Have you ever heard your name spoken in a dream so clearly, so gently yet so powerfully that it shook you awake? What if I told you that death is not silence but a summons, that when the body dissolves and the soul stands naked before eternity, some are called by name, and others left wandering, not because they were forgotten, but because they could no longer hear, because the ears of the soul are not tuned by belief, but by remembrance. In the Gospel of John, Jesus said, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." In the book of Revelation, it is written that names are recorded in the book of life, not as a reward, but as a residence. The name that is called is not the name given at birth. It is the name your soul remembers from before time. The name formed in stillness, carved in light, sealed with intention before you took your first breath. In the Upanishads, it is said that the soul is guided by the divine spark within, but only if it awakens to its own essence. The Katha Upanishad speaks of Yama, the Lord of Death, showing the path to those who know the self. The Amrita Sutra tells of souls who at the moment of death are greeted by bodhisattvas calling them into realms of bliss. But these aren't random salvations. These are the results of a life aligned with truth, so that even in the darkness of death, the soul remembers how to respond to the light. And yet, so many do not hear, not because the voice stopped speaking, but because their inner signal was lost beneath the noise of ego, fear, ambition, regret. They hear nothing because they became deaf to what is real. They wait for angels but do not recognize the love that called them every day in the form of conscience, wonder, humility. They wait for a savior but ignored every moment they were invited to be kind, to be honest, to be still. This is the fourth secret of the weighing of the soul. Recognition opens the path. Those who are called have spent their lives remembering, not performing, not pretending, but reconnecting with their original light. They have walked through suffering and chosen love. They have faced temptation and chosen truth. Not perfectly, not without falling, but they never forgot the direction of home. Hermetic teachings say to ascend the soul must be aligned with the divine order, not religious order. Divine resonance. A soul full of hatred cannot recognize the voice of peace. A soul addicted to deception cannot understand the sound of truth. This is not punishment. This is physics. This is spiritual gravity. The heavier the lie you carry, the harder it is to rise into clarity. The more light you hold, the more clearly you hear the call. And so I ask you, if your name were whispered across the veil, right now, would your soul remember how to respond? Would you recognize the voice that shaped you, guided you, grieved for your pain, rejoiced in your victories, and waited always? Waited for you to return. If not, that's not a cause for fear. It's a call to begin again. To start listening now, to silence the noise, to align with the quiet voice within, the one that tells you to forgive, to serve, to let go. That voice is the echo of your original name. Follow it and the path opens. Forget it and the soul wanders, not because it is rejected, but because it no longer knows how to come home. So share this message. Let it be the whisper someone else needs. Maybe they've stopped believing they're worth saving. Maybe they've forgotten their name. Let them hear through your voice, through your choice to care, that they are not lost, that it's not too late. That recognition is a practice, and every act of truth is a step toward the call. Subscribe to this journey not just for content, but for connection. For remembrance, because you are more than flesh, you are the echo of something eternal, and one day you will be called. Make sure your soul knows the way back, because the fourth hidden truth about the weighing of the soul is this: only those who remember the voice of love will follow it home. Have you ever seen someone smile as they take their final breath? Not from madness, not from medication, but from a place beyond this world. A smile that isn't painted on the face, but one that blooms from the soul. That smile holds a secret, a truth so deep, so rarely spoken, that even death bows before it. And it is this: some souls are not afraid to be weighed because they have nothing left to fear. You see, not all arrive at death trembling, not all beg for more time. Some sit in stillness, eyes clear, heart open. They are not perfect. They are not saints, but they are free. And freedom, not perfection, is what prepares the soul for what comes next. The Bhagavad Gita tells of Arjuna, the warrior paralyzed by fear at the edge of battle, but Krishna reminds him that the soul is neither born nor dies, that death is not the end but a passage. Those who see beyond the illusion of the body do not cling. They do not flinch, because they've already died many times before, every time they let go of the ego. Every time they surrendered to what is instead of what they wished. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, "This body is not me. I am not limited by this body. I am life without boundaries." And when you live like that, you die without chains. The fear of death only haunts those who thought they were the body, those who mistook accomplishment for purpose, those who clung to regret like it could buy back time. But those who lived awake, who breathed with presence, who met each moment not as an enemy, but as a teacher, they leave differently. They meet death as a friend because they know the judgment they will face is not a courtroom of punishment. It's a mirror of truth. And they've been looking into that mirror every day of their life. Chogyam Trungpa taught that the essence of bravery is being without self-deception. These are the souls who are ready. Not because they have lived easy lives, but because they've lived honest ones. They've failed and forgiven. They've fallen and risen. They've made peace with imperfection, and because of that, they do not fear the scale, because they have already released what would weigh them down. And here is the fifth secret of the weighing of the soul. Those who walk in truth do not need to run from death. The smile at the edge of life is not denial, it is transcendence. It is the ultimate victory over fear. Because what is there to be afraid of when you have already made peace with who you are? Even Job, in the depth of his suffering, declared, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him." Not because he understood the why, but because he trusted the who. He trusted that the divine does not demand perfection, only truth, and when truth becomes your compass, even the valley of death becomes a sacred passage. So now I ask you, what would it take for you to meet death with a smile? What would you need to release? Who would you need to forgive? What truth have you been hiding from that's keeping you afraid? Because the day is coming for you, for us all, and the question will not be, did you live perfectly, but did you live honestly? If this speaks to something buried deep inside you, let it awaken. Share this message not as a sermon, but as a mirror. For someone out there needs to know they don't need to be afraid anymore. They only need to begin right now living like their soul already knows the way home. Subscribe if this message has stirred your spirit. Not for numbers, for light, for truth. So we don't forget, so we don't fall asleep again. Because the world is full of noise, but your soul knows silence. And in that silence, you will find the smile, the one that defies death, the one that says, I am ready. Because the fifth hidden truth about the weighing of the soul is this: those who live in truth do not fear being seen. And when you are no longer afraid to be seen, you are already free. Have you ever stood beside someone as they were dying and felt something pass through the room, a shift, a silence, a presence that was more than just the sum of medicine, machines, and breath? You might have felt it like time paused for something sacred. What you may not realize is that in those moments, you were not just a witness, you were a bridge. There is a hidden truth too few speak aloud. Not all souls know how to cross alone. Some stand at the threshold uncertain, bound not by sin, but by confusion, not by guilt, but by loneliness. They look not for a judge, but for someone to say you are safe, you are seen, you are not alone. In the Tibetan Bardo teachings, it is said that guides appear in luminous forms to lead the soul forward, but those forms are not always gods or angels. Sometimes they are you, a word spoken with love, a song you hum by the bedside, a gentle touch that says, I am here. These are not small gestures, they are signals in the dark. And for some souls, they make all the difference. Jesus wept at Lazarus' tomb, not because he lacked power to raise him, but because he felt the sorrow of separation. He showed us presence matters, that no one should cross in silence or in fear. And so when we love, when we show up, when we become still in the face of death, we become the voice some lost souls are waiting for. This is the sixth hidden truth of the weighing of the soul. You are part of someone else's journey. Your light, your presence may be what allows another soul to release its burden, and in doing so, your soul grows lighter too. Richard Bauckham, in studying Revelation, speaks of a divine city where every tear is wiped away. But who do you think wipes those tears? It is not just God, it is us. Souls that remember, souls that return, souls that choose to stay behind a little longer, so others may find the path. So I ask you, who in your life might need that presence? Not advice, not answers. Just you fully there, heart open. No judgment, no rush, because when you stand beside someone in pain, physical, emotional, spiritual, you may be doing more than comforting. You may be guiding. We often look at life as a solo journey, but the soul was never meant to evolve alone. We are threads in a tapestry, and when one soul rises, it lifts others. When one falls, we all feel the pull. That is why love matters. That is why kindness echoes. That is why your presence, your quiet, humble, unwavering presence has the power to open gates beyond this world. If this truth moves something in you, let it move you into action. Be there for someone, truly be there. And if you've lost someone, speak to them still. Souls hear what ears cannot. Your words may become their bridge. Share this message with someone who needs to know that even now they are not alone. Subscribe if this journey continues to awaken your spirit. Not to follow a channel, but to remember who you are and who you were meant to help, because the sixth hidden truth about the weighing of the soul is this: no one crosses alone. And sometimes your light is the one they were waiting for. Have you ever wondered what truly matters in the end? The big decisions, the public triumphs, the declarations of love, the dramatic sacrifices. We imagine the weighing of the soul as a reckoning of great moments. But what if I told you it's not the dramatic gestures that tip the scale? It's the quiet ones, the ones you forgot, the ones you thought didn't matter. The ancient texts whisper a truth few are prepared to hear. Nothing is forgotten. Not the tear you wiped in silence. Not the lie you told yourself would do no harm. Not the kindness you offered without applause, nor the cruelty you justified with tired excuses. The soul remembers, not as a ledger, but as a mirror. The Ksitigarbha Sutra tells of the Bodhisattva who vowed never to enter nirvana until every soul in hell was freed. Why? Because he understood the weight of even a single unkind act. He knew that every seemingly trivial harm ripples across lifetimes. Ecclesiastes mourns, God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, not to punish but to reveal, to restore truth where denial once lived. Manly Pai Hall said it best, the things you forget remember you. It's the words spoken in anger that linger like shadows, the love withheld out of fear that echoes in the silence after you're gone. These are the fingerprints we leave on the soul, not just our own, but others. We are connected whether we accept it or not. And here is the seventh secret of the weighing of the soul. What you consider small, the soul considers sacred. Every action writes a vibration into your being. You may forget, but your soul does not. Not because it wants to accuse, but because it is made of truth, and truth does not vanish. It waits patiently until the day you are ready to see clearly. This is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to awaken you, because the power in this truth is immense. It means that you don't need a grand platform to change the course of your destiny. You only need to choose presence, in integrity, gentleness. Now in the small thing, because in the realm of spirit there are no small thing. The universe is not judging you. It's reflecting you, and it reflects even the glances, the gestures, the thoughts you entertained in silence. The weighing is not about measuring how much you did, it's about how deeply you live. And often the most transformative things are the ones no one else ever saw. So I ask you, what forgotten corners of your life need light? Who have you brushed past without seeing? What habit of speech, of thought, of reaction have you accepted as normal, but your soul whispers otherwise? There is no shame here, only invitation to live more awake, more intentional, more kind, not to avoid judgment, but to rise above the need for it. Because when your soul becomes the lightest thing you carry, you will have nothing to fear when it is placed on the scale. If this truth resonates with you, pass it on. Let someone else hear what their heart has long suspected. Let them know nothing is wasted. Every loving act, every quiet forgiveness, every moment of courage in private, it matters. Deeply subscribe. If this journey continues to stir your soul, not for trend, but for truth, because this is not content, this is remembrance. And remembrance is what frees you. Because the seventh hidden truth about the weighing of the soul is this: it is the smallest things, the ones you forgot, that speak the loudest when the silence comes. You've helped the poor, you've given to charity, you've apologized when you were wrong. On the surface, your deeds shine, but beneath that shine, what fueled them? Was it love, or was it guilt? Was it compassion, or was it the fear of looking bad, of not being enough, of trying to earn a reward that cannot be bought? You see, there's a secret so subtle, so easily missed, that even the most devout overlook it. The universe is not impressed by what you do. It listens to why you did it. The soul is not weighed by acts. It is weighed by the intention behind them. And in this, you cannot lie, because the soul cannot be fooled by appearances. It remembers the fire behind the gesture, not just the gesture itself. The Bhagavad Gita says, "A man is made by his faith. As his faith is, so he is." Krishna teaches Arjuna that action without attachment, action born of devotion, not ego, is what purifies. In short, do not act for reward. Act because it is right. Because when the soul stands before the mirror, it will not replay your resume. It will replay your motives. Jesus said, "When you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing." Why? Because once ego enters, the purity dissolves, the deed remains, but the fragrance is lost. You can say 1,000 kind words and still carry pride. You can serve the world and still be serving yourself. And you can remain silent in a moment of truth and still radiate courage if love, not fear, holds your silence. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." He wasn't only speaking of psychology, he was speaking of the soul. Because what we do unconsciously, seeking approval, avoiding shame, manipulating others under the guise of goodness, those things cling to us. And when the soul is weighed, these invisible shadows are what drag it downward. This is the eighth hidden truth of the weighing of the soul. You are not judged for what you did, but for who you became while doing it. And this truth liberates, because it means that even if you failed outwardly, even if the world called you weak or wrong, if your heart was true, your soul will shine. And it means the opposite too. That even if the world praised your actions, applauded your speeches, wrote your name in lights, if it was ego that moved you, fear that guided you, vanity that whispered behind the scenes, then the scale will not lie. The soul sees what the eyes cannot. It weighs love, sincerity, surrender. So now ask yourself, not what have I done, but what have I meant? What desire drives you? What fear hides behind your smile? What craving lurks behind your generosity? This is not to shame you. It is to free you, because once you see clearly, you can choose differently and you can begin again. Today, right now, with the next breath, you can let go of the act and live from essence. You can stop trying to earn light and become it, because the soul does not rise by force. It rises by truth, and truth only flows from intention. If this truth speaks to your soul, don't keep it in silence. Share it with someone trapped in the illusion of performance. Someone who feels like they're never enough. Tell them you are not what you do. You are why you do it. And that is the part that gets weighed. That is the part that can always be redeemed. Subscribe if this message reminds you of what you already knew, but may have forgotten. This isn't content. This is your soul's mirror. And every word you hear brings you closer to the day when that mirror no longer scares you, but welcomes you. Because the eighth hidden truth about the weighing of the soul is this: even a small act born of pure love can lift a soul more than 1,000 grand gestures done for pride. What if the fire you fear is not there to destroy you, but to cleanse you? What if the mirror you avoid is not your judge, but your medicine? For centuries, we've been taught to look outward for redemption. But the truth whispered by mystics and sages is far more daring. The soul does not need to be saved. It needs to be faced. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Bardo, Thodol, the soul encounters terrifying visions after death, demons, monsters, nightmares. But the text tells us they are not punishments. They are projections, echoes of our own mind, fears shaped into form, and the key to liberation. Not to fight, not to flee, but to recognize. These are my creations. Only then do they dissolve. Only then does the path appear. Swami Sivananda taught, your vision will become clear. Only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. And so many of us, even in life, are running not from death, but from our own eyes. From the wounds we buried, the shame we masked, the truths we weren't ready to admit, but the soul remembers, and in the final silence, nothing is louder than the voice within. Alchemy speaks of fire, not just literal flame, but inner combustion. Calcination, the first stage, is where everything false is burned away, not as punishment, but as healing. The ego must be reduced to ash before the gold within can shine, and that fire comes when you finally say, yes, this is me. This is what I've done. This is what I carry, and I will carry it no more. This is the 9th hidden truth of the weighing of the soul. Healing is not a gift. It is a choice, a painful, glorious, terrifying choice to meet yourself fully. Not the version you show others, not the story you tell, but the raw, unfiltered, immortal you. The soul that has watched every decision you have ever made, the one that's been waiting not to scold you, but to embrace you. If only you'd stop running, and when you do, when you face the wounds, the darkness, the failures, not with judgment, but with compassion, something begins to happen. The weight begins to lift. The shadows begin to lose their shape. The fire doesn't burn, it illuminates. And for the first time you feel something you may have forgotten how to name peace. Because healing does not come from forgetting. It comes from remembering differently, with gentleness, with clarity, with the kind of honesty that sets you free. So I ask you now, what have you been afraid to face? What part of yourself have you locked away, convinced that if the world saw it, or if you saw it, everything would fall apart? The truth is only the illusion will fall apart, and that's exactly what needs to burn. If this message finds you at the edge of that mirror, do not turn away. You are not alone. Many have stood there trembling, and many, having faced themselves, have found the light waiting behind the dark air. This truth, for someone you know, is hiding from their own reflection. Tell them you do not have to be perfect to heal. You only have to be honest, and from that honesty, healing begins. Subscribe if you've felt the fire of this truth burning inside you, not as content, but as confirmation that you are ready, that the soul you carry is not broken. It is just waiting to be seen. Because the 9th hidden truth about the weighing of the soul is this: you are the fire and the one being refined, and only by walking through the flame can you become light enough to rise. What if I told you that the final judgment is not a trial at all, that the scales you've imagined, the scales of right and wrong, of reward and punishment, are not what awaits you in the end? That the soul is not judged by its deeds, nor weighed by its mistakes, but is instead asked one simple question: are you ready to return? And the catch, you can only return if you remember how to fly. In the Bardo Thodol, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it says that the soul passes through many stages after death: visions, temptations, battles with fear, with desire, with illusion. But when all these tests have been faced, the soul is met with a light so pure, so vast, that it must decide whether to enter. Not because it has earned it, but because it remembers it. The light doesn't judge the soul, it invites it back to its origin. It is a reminder not of who we were, but of who we always were. The Bhagavad Gita speaks of transcendence, not as an achievement, but as a return. Krishna says, when you give up attachment to the fruits of your actions, you become free from the cycle of birth and death. It's not about escaping, it's about remembering and returning to the freedom you were born with. The soul in its purest form is not meant to be weighed, it is meant to fly. Carl Jung wrote, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And this is not just about your personal journey in this life, it is about all the lives, all the choices, all the cycles you have ever experienced. The soul does not simply pass through time, it remembers. It remembers where it came from. And when the time comes, it is called back, not by its deeds, but by its essence. And that essence knows the way. This is the 10th and final secret of the weighing of the soul. You are not judged. You are invited, and the invitation is to return to the light you came from, to the freedom you once knew. But in order to accept that invitation, the soul must be light enough to rise. So I ask you, are you ready to fly? Are you ready to return to the peace you were made of? Are you ready to release the weights that anchor you in fear, regret, and guilt? Because the soul cannot rise while it is carrying the baggage of the past. It must let go. The greatest gift you can give your soul is the ability to let go of anger, of fear, of doubt, of everything that weighs you down. And the moment you do, you will realize that the scales were never there to judge you. They were there to remind you of your wings. If this message has awakened something inside you, then share it. Let others hear it. Let them know the soul is not here to be weighed, it is here to return. And the moment we remember how to fly, we will find ourselves at home again. So subscribe, share, let this message spread, because the soul is calling us back. And the only thing it asks is that we remember. Because the 10th hidden truth about the weighing of the soul is this: you are not judged, you are invited back to the light you came from. And all you need to do is remember how to fly. The truth about the soul has been revealed. Now it's time for you to find yourself and rise, share, subscribe, and let this journey continue. The soul's call is not just a whisper, it is a summons to return to your true nature. Remember, you are not judged. You are invited to rise.